There comes a moment in every life when a door closes so quietly that we spend years standing in front of it, waiting for a sound that will never come. We wait for the call. We wait for the apology. We wait for the return of a person who has already become a memory. And while we wait, life continues to move like a river that refuses to stop for anyone. Many of us have been taught to believe that every relationship is meant to last forever. We cling to people with trembling hands, convinced that if we love harder, sacrifice more, explain ourselves better, or become smaller versions of who we are, they will stay. But there is a wisdom hidden in every departure, a truth that often reveals itself long after the tears have dried. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to remain. Some people arrive as lessons. Some arrive as mirrors. Some arrive simply to awaken a part of you that had fallen asleep. And when the season of their purpose ends, their leaving is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes what feels like rejection is life gently removing what can no longer travel with you into the next chapter of your becoming. The hardest thing is not watching someone leave. The hardest thing is releasing the story you wrote about them. It is letting go of the future you imagined, the promises you believed, the comfort of familiarity. Yet there is a sacred freedom waiting on the other side of that release. A freedom that arrives when you stop asking why they left and begin asking what their departure is making room for. So if someone has walked away, if a friendship has faded, if a relationship has ended, if a connection you treasured has slipped through your fingers, hear this deeply. Not every ending is meant to be repaired. Not every absence is meant to be filled. Sometimes the most courageous act is not holding on. Sometimes the most faithful act is opening your hands and letting go, trusting that what is meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself in order to keep it. One of the most difficult truths to accept is that not every departure is a loss. When someone leaves your life, the immediate reaction is often pain, confusion, or even self-blame. We search our memories for mistakes. We replay conversations. We wonder what we could have said differently, what we could have done better, and whether there was a way to prevent the ending. Yet life has a mysterious way of removing people when their role in our story has been fulfilled. What appears to be an ending may actually be a redirection towards something greater than we can presently see. There are relationships that feel permanent while they are happening. They become part of our daily routines, our dreams, and our sense of identity. We begin to believe that the people beside us today will always remain beside us tomorrow. But life does not operate according to our expectations. It moves according to growth, purpose, and timing. Sometimes a person who is necessary for one season becomes unnecessary in the next. Their departure is not proof that the connection was meaningless. In fact, some of the most valuable relationships are temporary because they arrive to teach us lessons that will remain long after the person is gone. Think about a tree in autumn. The leaves do not fall because the tree has failed. They fall because a new season requires it. The tree releases what once gave it beauty so it can prepare for future growth. Human lives follow a similar pattern. Certain people enter our journey to help us through a particular chapter. They encourage us, challenge us, teach us, or reveal something important about ourselves. Once that purpose is completed, life may create distance. Resisting that change often creates more suffering than the departure itself. Many people spend years trying to recover relationships that were never meant to continue. They chase explanations, demand closure, and cling to memories that belong to another chapter. In doing so, they become trapped between what was and what could be. Meanwhile, opportunities for healing, growth, and new connections pass by unnoticed. The energy spent trying to reopen closed doors could be used to walk through the new ones waiting ahead. There is also a deeper form of trust required during these moments. Trust means believing that you do not have to understand everything immediately. It means accepting that some answers arrive months or even years later. Looking back, many people discover that the departures they once mourned became turning points. The friend who left created space for healthier relationships. The partner who walked away prevented years of unhappiness. The opportunity that disappeared led to a path far more aligned with their purpose. What feels like abandonment in one season can reveal itself as guidance in another. The pain is real, and the grief should never be ignored. But neither should the possibility that life is steering you toward a destination you could not have reached while holding on to what was no longer meant to remain. Every departure carries the potential to become a doorway. Every goodbye contains the seed of a new beginning. And every person who leaves may be making room for a future that requires a different version of you. One of the greatest sources of emotional suffering is not the loss itself, but our refusal to accept it. When people no longer belong in our journey, we often continue holding on long after they have mentally, emotionally, or physically moved away. We convince ourselves that if we wait a little longer, try a little harder, or sacrifice a little more, things will return to what they once were. Yet the more tightly we grip what is already slipping away, the more pain we create for ourselves. There is a profound difference between loving someone and clinging to them. Love allows freedom. Attachment often fears it. Many people remain connected to relationships that have already ended in spirit. They keep revisiting old conversations, rereading messages, and reliving memories as though the past can somehow be brought back to life. Their minds become occupied by what was instead of what is. In that state, growth becomes difficult because their energy is directed toward preserving something that no longer exists. The heart becomes crowded with yesterday, leaving little room for today. The truth is that not everyone who enters your life is meant to walk beside you forever. Some people are companions for a season. Some are teachers disguised as friends, partners, or acquaintances. Their purpose is not to remain permanently, but to help shape who you become. Problems arise when we mistake a temporary role for a lifelong assignment. We begin to build our future around people who were only meant to be part of a chapter. When that chapter ends, we resist turning the page. Holding on to those who no longer belong often comes from fear. We fear loneliness. We fear uncertainty. We fear facing a future that looks different from the one we imagined. Familiar pain can seem safer than unfamiliar freedom. Even unhealthy relationships can become comfortable because they are known. As a result, People sometimes choose emotional captivity over the uncertainty of moving forward. They remain connected to individuals who constantly disappoint them, disrespect them, or drain their spirit simply because letting go feels frightening. Yet every attachment that outlives its purpose carries a cost. It consumes emotional energy that could be invested elsewhere. It distracts from personal growth. It creates resentment, disappointment, and exhaustion. The constant struggle to maintain a connection that no longer flows naturally becomes a burden. Instead of enriching life, the relationship begins to diminish it. What once felt nurturing starts to feel heavy. Letting go does not mean pretending the relationship never mattered. It does not mean denying the love, memories, or lessons that were shared. It means accepting reality with honesty. It means recognizing when a person's presence no longer aligns with your path. It means understanding that your value is not determined by who stays or who leaves. The end of a connection is not always a reflection of your worth. Sometimes it is simply evidence that two lives are moving in different directions. There is a quiet strength that emerges when you stop chasing people who have chosen another path. You reclaim your energy. You reclaim your focus. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were lost in the effort to hold everything together. In that release, suffering begins to loosen its grip, and space is created for peace, clarity, and relationships that no longer require you to beg for presence, understanding, or reciprocity. One of the most uncomfortable experiences in life is finding yourself in a season of emptiness. A relationship ends, a friendship fades, a familiar connection disappears, and suddenly there is a space where someone's presence used to be. The silence feels unfamiliar. The routines changed. The future you imagined no longer exists in the way you expected. In those moments, many people interpret the emptiness as evidence that something has gone wrong. They see the vacant space as a sign of loss rather than a necessary stage of growth. Yet some of life's greatest transformations begin in places that initially feel empty. Nature teaches this lesson repeatedly. Before new flowers bloom, the garden often appears bare. Before a seed becomes a tree, it must first disappear beneath the soil. Before dawn arrives, there is darkness. Growth rarely begins with abundance. More often, it begins with space. Something old must move aside before something new can emerge. Human lives are no different. The departures, endings, and goodbyes we experience often create room for possibilities that could not have entered while everything remained the same. Many people fear empty spaces because they immediately try to fill them. They rush into new relationships to avoid loneliness. They distract themselves with constant activity to escape reflection. They seek noise because silence forces them to confront emotions they would rather avoid. But growth often requires us to sit with the emptiness long enough to understand its purpose. The space left behind is not always meant to be filled immediately. Sometimes it is meant to teach us something about ourselves. When certain people leave our lives, they take with them familiar patterns, expectations, and attachments. At first, this can feel unsettling because those things have become part of our identity. We may have relied on someone else's approval to feel valuable. We may have depended on their presence to feel secure. Once they are gone, we are faced with an important question. Who are we without them? The empty space becomes an invitation to discover strengths, passions, and qualities that were hidden beneath dependency and routine. Growth requires room. New opportunities require room. New relationships require room. New perspectives require room. If every corner of your life remains occupied by old attachments, there is little space for anything different to enter. Sometimes the very blessing you are waiting for cannot arrive until you release what currently occupies its place. Life often removes things not because it wants to deprive you, but because it is preparing you for something that requires greater capacity. Looking back, many people realize that their most significant periods of development occurred during seasons they once considered lonely or difficult. The absence they feared became the environment where confidence was built. The isolation they resisted became the place where purpose became clearer. The ending they mourned became the beginning of a more authentic life. What initially appeared empty was actually full of unseen possibilities waiting to unfold. The challenge is learning to trust the process before the results become visible. It is understanding that not every vacant space is a problem to solve. Some spaces are sacred. Some silences are necessary. Some endings are creating conditions for growth that cannot happen any other way. What feels empty today may be quietly preparing itself to hold something far greater tomorrow, something that could never have entered had the old chapter remained unfinished and the old space remained occupied. One of the most powerful shifts a person can experience is the moment they stop chasing those who have chosen to leave. For many people, the departure of someone they care about feels like a verdict on their worth. They assume that if someone walked away, they must not have been good enough, lovable enough, interesting enough, or valuable enough. This belief often leads to a painful cycle of pursuit. They seek explanations that never come, send messages that go unanswered, and spend countless hours trying to convince someone to see their value. Yet, every attempt to force a connection usually deepens the wound rather than heals it. Self-worth cannot grow in an environment where your value depends on another person's decision to stay. The moment you allow someone else's presence to determine your worth, you hand over your power. Your confidence rises when they approve of you and falls when they withdraw. Your peace becomes tied to circumstances beyond your control. This creates a fragile foundation because people are free to make their own choices. They can change, leave, or move in a different direction, and none of those actions define who you are. Many people spend years trying to earn love that should never have required earning. They overextend themselves, constantly proving their loyalty, generosity, and devotion. They become exhausted trying to secure a place in someone's life. In the process, they often neglect the most important relationship they have, the relationship with themselves. They begin sacrificing their boundaries, their dignity, and even their identity to maintain a connection that no longer flows naturally. There is a hidden cost to chasing people. Every moment spent pursuing someone who has chosen distance is a moment not invested in your own growth. Every ounce of energy used to gain another person's validation is energy that could have been used to strengthen your confidence, develop your talents, and create a life that reflects your true value. The pursuit keeps your focus outward when it needs to turn inward. The strongest people are not those who never experience rejection. They are the ones who understand that rejection and worth are not the same thing. A person's decision to leave may reflect their needs, their circumstances, their fears, or their path in life. It does not automatically reflect your value as a human being. When you understand this, you stop viewing departures as evidence of deficiency. Instead, you see them as information. You recognize that not every connection is meant to continue, and not every person is meant to remain. As you release the need to chase, something remarkable begins to happen. You start recognizing your own value independent of external approval. You realize that your worth existed before certain people entered your life and will continue after they leave. You begin setting healthier boundaries because you no longer fear abandonment in the same way. You become less willing to accept disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect because you understand that keeping your self-respect is more important than keeping every relationship. True confidence emerges when you know that you can survive someone's absence without questioning your value. It grows when you stop begging for a place where you are not appreciated and start building a life that honors who you are. The moment you stop running after those who choose to leave is often the moment you begin walking toward a deeper understanding of your own worth, discovering a strength that was hidden beneath the constant desire to be chosen. There is a kind of peace that does not arrive through control, but through surrender, a quiet settling of the heart that comes when you finally accept that life unfolds in ways your mind cannot always predict or command. Trusting life does not mean you stop caring about what happens to you. It means you stop resisting every turn simply because it does not match your expectations. It means you begin to understand that even the painful chapters are not random. Even the losses are not meaningless. And even the endings are part of a larger movement that your current perspective cannot fully see. When people are in the middle of emotional pain, especially after someone important leaves, the instinct is to question everything. Why did this happen? Why now? Why this person? Why this way? The mind searches for certainty because uncertainty feels unbearable. But life rarely offers immediate explanations. Instead, it asks for patience. It asks for the willingness to sit in not knowing, without forcing answers that are not yet ready to reveal themselves. In that space of not knowing, trust becomes the only bridge between confusion and clarity. Trust is not passive. It is not pretending that nothing hurts or that everything feels fine. It is an active choice to believe that your life is still moving in a direction that holds meaning, even when the current moment feels like it is falling apart. It is the decision to stop treating every ending as a failure and start seeing it as a transition. When someone leaves, when a door closes, when a plan collapses, trust whispers that what is leaving may not be aligned with where you are meant to go next. Many people only recognize the value of past losses after time has passed. What once felt like rejection slowly reveals itself as protection. What once felt like abandonment becomes redirection. What once felt like confusion becomes clarity. The human mind tends to focus on what is immediately visible, but life often works in layers that unfold gradually. Trust allows you to remain steady while those layers reveal themselves in their own time. There is also peace in understanding that you are not required to force every connection to last or every situation to stay intact. Some things are designed to be temporary. Some people are meant to pass through your life rather than remain in it. When you resist this natural movement, you create suffering by trying to hold on to what is already changing. But when you trust the flow of life, you begin to loosen your grip on outcomes and pay more attention to your inner stability. In that shift, something powerful happens. The need to control every detail begins to soften. The fear of losing people becomes less dominant. The urgency to fix what is already complete starts to fade. You begin to realize that peace does not come from making life predictable, but from learning to stay grounded even when it is not. Trust becomes a quiet strength that allows you to keep moving forward without demanding that every step be fully explained in advance. And in that trust, the heart learns to rest even in uncertainty